Mona Gauranga Hridaya Dhariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Che Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Prare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya, Prema Vidana Paramar Pumata, Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishayustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathabda Brajabala Pahimam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So nice to see everybody today. Hare Krishna. We're here with Greta, our Lithuanian friend. We're in Lithuania in New Gokul Dham. The temple opening was just yesterday. And that's why I'm really exhausted still. It's been a really, really intense program. So we have a few devotees here who are just starting in this group, I think. I'm just going to look back a little bit. So we titled this Mahaprabhu's Bhajan and the Gambhira. And we began by discussing something about what is a Gambhira, what does the word Gambhira mean, what is a physical place like, how is the house of Kashi Mishra. Well, who is Kashi Mishra? Who is Kashi Mishra in Ram Lila? Who is Kashi Mishra in Krishna Lila? Who is Kashi Mishra going to be in Krishna Lila? We discussed all that because that's an important thing, because that's the place where Mahaprabhu was doing his bhajan. We discussed something about the physical qualities or the description of the Gambhira. And we discussed something about the difference between Gambhira Leela and Navadvip Leela, and the difference between Mahaprabhu and his pastimes, where he's known as Vishwambar, he's maintaining the universe, and he's known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya, or that personality who's absorbed in meditation on consciousness of Krishna. And then we've been speaking for a few sessions about what is the general mood of Mahaprabhu's Gambhira Leela, and what is the necessity of it, and how Mahaprabhu is there trying to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani. So largely I've been following, and I go off on my own thing because I really like to, there's certain things I want to speak about, but it's kind of a framework. We've been going from a Bengali book, which is just being translated right now for the first time, by one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's associates, whose name is Rasik Mohan Vidyabhushan, and he wrote a book called Gambhiraya Sri Gauranga. And we've been kind of loosely following his format. And we're on chapter 3 of his book right now, still where he's overviewing Ancha Leela, the session today, we want to speak something about Mahaprabhu's behavior in the Gambhira, and how he represented his own character to teach the mass of people, because this Gambhira bhajan is a very, very high thing. This is actually the highest thing in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. We've heard of books like Govinda Lilamrita and others. Those books are quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is speaking about Mahaprabhu's Gambhira Leela. And as we spoke in some previous sessions, this Gambhira Bhajan Pranali, or the system of bhajan that we find from the Gambhira, is a system of bhajan where we're doing bhajan for the pleasure of the Lord. Whereas generally, people are doing bhajan, they're doing sadhana for their own benefit. Sometimes so they get a nice wife or a nice husband, or they get money or a job, or they become a demigod or whatever, or to get liberation, or to become free from material desires. But in the case of the bhajan that was being done by Swarup Damodar Goswami and Roy Ramananda and the Gambhira, they were singing songs and reading Krishna Katha for the pleasure of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for Mahaprabhu to relish a certain mellow. And this is a very, very deep, very, very esoteric concept. In some ways, it's a very simple concept, but it has very deep ramifications. So today, we want to speak something about how Mahaprabhu showed us what kind of character someone should have who's interested in relishing Braj Ras. What kind of precautions, what kind of renunciation, what kind of absorption in Krishna Leela are required to prepare our mind for Braj Ras. And especially today, we'll be speaking about Ramachandra Puri and how Mahaprabhu in general made himself obedient to the instructions of the devotees, to teach us that Krishna himself is Bhakta Bhaktiman. He's a devotee of his devotees. I'm trying to remember, there's a statement in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, which I was reciting over and over again this morning, I've forgotten already, that Krishna says that of all the types of worship, the worship of my devotee is better than the worship of me. So when Krishna came as a devotee, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu wants to taste the mood of Radharani, to teach us how to do that, he shows us his relationship with the devotees. Yesterday we were speaking some things here at the temple opening about community, something that I often do. And Mahaprabhu is also interested in community, but we can read in Manasamhita about community. So it's a very, very important principle in Vedic culture. We can read in Srimad Bhagavatam about community, which gives us a whole different understanding of it. But then there's the understanding of Chaitanya Charitamrita and of Gaura Leela. And we, in general, in the Manasamhita, we hear about community, which is based on religious principles. Bhakta Puja Vyadika. That's good. Thank you, Krishna. Bhakta Puja Vyadika. Krishna says that worship of my devotee is better than me. Worship of me. We can look in Manasamhita and see about rules and regulations and how to run community. We can look in Vedic culture. We were reading something yesterday, this quote I'd like to read very often, where Prabhupada said that Vedic culture is based on love, not law. And by law, you can't make someone love you. You can't make them follow your rules. But if they love you, they naturally will. That's Vedic culture. That's perhaps a little better than the smarta things which we hear about in Manasamhita. Above that, and Srila Prabhupada was speaking to some leaders of government, above that we find Srimad Bhagavatam. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, we find community principles also, which are based upon keeping Krishna in the center and thinking of Krishna's pleasure. But what we find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's another type of community described. And this is a community which is based on Krishna praying. And the mood of the gopis and Srimati Radharani is kept in the center. And this is the mood of community that we find amongst the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, both during his manifest pastimes and also in the pastimes of Narottam Das Thakur and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and other Vaishnavas who came after him. So we learn from these things that Krishna, as Mahaprabhu, to show what is proper to be a devotee, he's following the instructions of the devotees. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the beginning of his Harinam Chintamani, he speaks about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepts as his teacher Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he learns Mukti Tattva, what is the meaning of liberation. And he learns from Haridas Thakur, Nam Tattva, the science of the holy name. He learns from Ramananda Roy about Sadhya Sadhana Tattva, what is the goal in our sadhana, and what is our behavior in our sadhana. And he learns from Rupa Goswami about Rasa Tattva. Now, he's a Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Ramananda Roy describes in Madhya Lila chapter 8 of Chaitanya Charitamrita, says, my Lord, I'm just like a violin that you're playing, and you're making the sound come from my mouth. So all of these things, Vedaishchit Savarya Hameva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Veda Vedeva Chaham, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that I am the source of all the Vedas, I know the Vedas, I'm the knower of the Vedas. So he's inspiring these different persons to speak. Why is he doing this? There's both a guna hetu, or external reason, as well as internal reason, mukhya hetu, primary purpose. His external purpose is to teach us, and in particular teach us about Raganuga Bhakti. That if you want to develop Raganuga Bhakti, you need to work under the guidance of the devotees. And the mukhya hetu, the primary purpose, is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. He wants to work under the guidance of the gopis. Why does he want to work under the guidance of the gopis? Because he wants to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani. And the gopis know that mood better than anyone else. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us in this way. And he accepted Ramachandra Puri as his instructor, as his teacher. And in the pastime, Ramachandra Puri became the object of criticism and hatred, anger of the devotees. But actually, if we examine it, Ramachandra Puri had no fault, because all of these things were done under the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're going to be reading in this session from Madhya Lila chapter 8, Ancha Lila chapter 8. If you have a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita there, you can open it up. We're going to start with verse number 42. And these are Srila Prabhupada's translations. So it's 8, Madhya Lila chapter 8, text 42. You don't have it on your phone. Okay. Prabhu Sthiti Riti Bhiksha Shayana Prayana Ramachandra Puri Kori Sarvan Anusandana. That Ramachandra Puri, he was situated in this particular situation. He wanted to know, I should say, Prabhu Sthiti, he wanted to know what was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doing. What was his riti, what was his bhiksha, what was his shayana, what was his prayana, what was his regulated principles, how was he taking his lunch, his bhiksha, how was he begging things, how was he sleeping, prayana, how was he moving about. And this is Ramachandra Puri's purpose. Generally, devotees find this kind of thing very, very obnoxious. We sometimes comment on the word preaching. And the devotees say, well, we should all go and preach. Let's go and preach, Prabhu. But at the same time, if you look in the dictionary, the word preach has a number of different meanings, some of which are not very nice. Like sometimes you tell somebody, look, don't preach to me, okay? Quit preaching. Preaching means someone's being very obnoxious. So this is Ramachandra Puri. He's speaking about religious principles, but he's not doing it on the platform of love. He's doing it on the platform of law. These are the rules, and this is what this and that says. So in text 44, he says, Sannyasi Hanakori Mishana Bhakshana. And he finally found some fault. Mishana Bhakshana. That how can a sannyasi Hanakori Mishana Bhakshana, how can he eat so many sweets? How can you do Indriya Varna, controlling your senses, if you're eating sweets like that? It's a very, very bad thing. Thank God Srila Prabhupada came to America and not Ramachandra Puri to preach. If it would have been Ramachandra Puri, I don't think Krishna consciousness would have taken off. So then in text 47, it's described Mahaprabhu's understanding of what's going on. Jata Ninda Kori Taha Prabhu Sabajani. That Mahaprabhu Sabajani, he knows everything. He knows why, Jani means that persons rather, that Mahaprabhu understands why that Ramachandra Puri was criticizing him before everyone, doing his ninda. But still, whenever Ramachandra Puri would come there, Tatapi Adare Kori Bodo I Sambramani. Bodo means great I Sambramani. It means that he was giving great respect to Ramachandra Puri. That's an amazing thing. Greta, can you do like that? If you find one of the girls is criticizing you, saying, did you see Greta was talking to that boy for 3 minutes and 42 seconds, you know? And oh my God, that's really, really a big scandal. And she's going on and telling your friends, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, not good.
Not very good. You're probably ready to kill her or something, right?
I guess.
But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's a sannyasi. When we have some position and someone criticizes us, as the Bhagavad Gita describes, that for someone who has respect, to be disrespected is like poison. So when someone respects you as a big, big person, and Ramachandra Puri was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, it's kind of like in our society, someone's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So just because they're a disciple, it doesn't. I remember, to give a gross example, we went and took part in Prabhupada's disappearance festival in Vancouver, Washington. I was a temple president in Seattle, and we drove up to Vancouver. And they asked different devotees to speak, and they asked one Prabhupada disciple to speak. And he came and sat down on the Vyasasana. He was wearing a t-shirt and some jeans. I was a little surprised. Anyway, whatever. To tell you the truth, I'm wearing pants right now. I'm giving class. It's a great scandal. Who cares? But then he started crying when he was sitting in the Vyasasana. He said, I'm doing all nonsense. I smoke and I drink and I smoke marijuana, but Prabhupada loves me. And I wasn't very much inspired. He's a Prabhupada disciple, though, and I want to give respect to him. So Ramachandra Puri was a bit like that. So Ramachandra Puri, one day, it said in text 49, it says, Ratri atar aikshayam asitena. That last night, there was some aikshavam, there was some candy here in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's room, because of the pipilika sancharanti aho viraktanam. He said, just see. We see all these pinporis, pipilika in Sanskrit. We see all these ants going around everywhere. What kind of sannyasi is this? Sannyasi namayam indriya lalasata. He's having attachment to sweets and things. This is very, very bad. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't become offended by that. Now, Ramachandra Puri probably was a student of Nyaya. In Nyaya and logic, you see some smoke, and in Nyaya you conclude there must be a fire. So in Nyaya, if you see some ants, then you conclude there must be some sweets around. And so he was criticizing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the basis of that. Now, again, for those of us, if somebody criticizes us, we go ballistic, especially if it's not true. We become very, very disturbed by it. But to teach us how deep our absorption has to be if we want to do vraja-bhajan, as we often sing from this verse of Narottam Das Thakur, what does he say? Karmi Gyani Micha Bhakta Nohoi Tai Anurakta. Don't be attached to the karmis, the gyanis, and the Micha Bhaktas, the false devotees. Rather, you should do vraja-bhajan, and you should be simple in the mood of the Brijbasis. So the mood of the Brijbasis is they're wholly and solely focused on Krishna. They're not running around having discussion. Maybe we should all go to Mathura and do a protest against Kamsa. He's such a demon. Did you hear? So many babies were killed by Putana on the order of Kamsa. So let's go do a protest.
That's a great example.
I mean, it's a pretty serious thing. Not just one or two babies, but so many babies were killed. Seriously, can you imagine Lithuania? If something happened like that, there's some mass crazy lady going around killing babies, and the government wasn't doing anything about it. What would people do? People would go nuts. They would protest, isn't it? In Kaunas and other places, there'd be protests and signs and things like that. But the Brijbasis didn't do that. They didn't go and protest. Why didn't they do that? They don't like babies? The Brijbasis like babies. But the Brijbasis, it's not that they don't have a choice. They're so absorbed in Krishna. There's no question of anything else. So Karmi Gyani Micha Bhakti Natoya Hoya Anurakta. Don't be attached to all those things. We should learn how to do vraja-bhajan and how to deal with people like Ramachandra Puri, because guaranteed, we all probably know. You know a few people like Ramachandra Puri. Yes, we all know a few people who are kind of like Ramachandra Puri. And we have to survive that. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Ramachandra Puri left, he wasn't offended by that. Rather, he treated Ramachandra Puri like his guru. Now, this is an interesting point, because sometimes he would listen to Ramachandra Puri, and as we're about to hear in text 53 to 54 in this chapter, sometimes he would listen to Ramachandra Puri, and other times he would just ignore him. And that's a very good principle. When there's some senior devotee and they criticize us or say something, we should bow our head and accept it. It's not going to hurt us. It'll help us. But sometimes it's just too much. It's just really stupid, what they're saying. Like yesterday, I heard some people criticizing Greta, saying that she speaks really lousy Chinese. Now, you probably can't sleep at night worrying about that, right? Probably you just ignore it. Actually, I didn't hear anybody say that. But if you heard somebody saying something like that, criticizing your Chinese grammar, that person's nuts, right? I don't speak Chinese. The person's crazy. Right? So you just ignore that. So sometimes there's some things which are just, person's just crazy. So we just ignore that. But then other times, especially if the person's a senior devotee, then we want to practice introspection. And it's not that we necessarily have to have absolute faith in that person, that we're submitting ourselves to them. It sounds like some kind of masochism or something. We would like to experience pain or some bizarre thing. It's not like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have great faith in that person, but we want to look for Krishna's hand. And what is Krishna trying to tell me? And maybe Krishna's trying to tell me, don't be so proud. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in text 53 and 54, he says, Aji hoite bhiksha ama ete niyama. he told his servant Govinda, he said, from now on, this is a niyama, this is a rule. Aji hoite, from now on, starting from today, Bhiksha Amar. When I accept prasadam, the rule is Pinda Bhoga Eka Choti Pancha Gandhara Vyandhara, that I'm only going to accept 1/4 of a pot of Jagannath Mahaprasad and a small amount of, this is 5 gandhis, Pancha Gandha, 5 gandhas worth of vegetables, a very small amount of vegetables. And he told the devotees, Iha bai adika ar kicha na aniba. Adika anile ama eta na dekiba. If you bring me anything more, if you bring me more than this, then ama eta na dekiba. You won't see me anymore. I'm leaving. This is how Mahaprabhu did. And it's interesting also how Mahaprabhu is doing it. Sometimes we have dealings with someone and they think that what it means to be a devotee is we got to lay down the law. And maybe they're strict about themselves even, and they chastise someone else very heavily. But Mahaprabhu here, he's not shouting at anybody. He's not calling them names. He's not saying, he's just with love. He's saying that fine, you do whatever you want. You can bring me Raj Bhog every day and this and that. But then, if you do that, Ama Eta Na Dekiba, you won't see me anymore. I'm just going to go somewhere else. And we find many times in Gaura Lila, this is how Mahaprabhu dealt with other persons. Rather than chastising them or defeating them, for example, when he defeated the Digvijay Pandit, Mahaprabhu's students who were watching, they started laughing. The Pandit, the big Pandit, who's defeated by this little boy in Navadvip. And immediately Mahaprabhu chastised him. No, don't laugh at him. And to begin with, Mahaprabhu knew that this Digvijay Pandit wanted to challenge him. Mahaprabhu took his students and went to the bank of the Ganga. It wasn't something that he did. It wasn't something he did in downtown Navadvip in front of 1,000 people, but it was something in private. He smashed that person, but he did it in private. He did it in a very, very sweet way. So from that day on, then Mahaprabhu started half-starving himself. And all the devotees became very, very disturbed about this. And at that point, Ramachandra Puri came back to Mahaprabhu and he chastised him again in a different way. Ramachandra Puri, it's really bad. Ramachandra Puri, he told him, he said, Sanyasira dharma nahi indriya tarpana, jaichi taichi kori mata udara bharana. He said, what is this? It's not the business of a sannyasi to do indriya tarpana, to satisfy his senses. So the sannyasi udara bharana, he has to eat something. He has to take some kind of prasadam and things. Otherwise, what kind of bhajan are you going to do? How can you follow your principles of sannyas? You must eat something. So he told Mahaprabhu that Tomarek Shina Deki Shuni Kora Adarshana Esuska Vairagya Nahi Sanyasira Dharma. You've been doing this, you've been cutting your eating in half. Ardasana means in half. You've been cutting your eating into half. I hear about this. I see now you become Tomarik Shina. Shina means very skinny. You become very, very skinny. He said, but this is Suska Vairagya. This is some dry renunciation. And this is not proper. This is not what I learned from Madhavendra Puri. So he doesn't say Madhavendra Puri, but it's kind of implicitly in there. And sometimes devotees, they do like this, that they, I'm initiated now. Did you see I got initiated yesterday? So I'm an initiated devotee, so I can give you some instructions, and you should learn what's right and what's wrong and what's proper. We have this tendency, we want to grab whatever kind of respect that we can, whatever way we can. So he said, then yata yoga udara bhari nakori vishaya bhogi sanya siddha tabi siddha hoya jnana yoga. That a sannyasi, he quotes this verse, Yuktahara Viharasya from Bhagavad Gita 6:17, that a sannyasi should eat just as much as necessary to maintain his body, but he doesn't enjoy satisfying his senses. And there, in that way, he becomes Siddhoya Jnana Yogi, he becomes Siddha, he becomes perfect in his knowledge. And so Ramachandra Puri was chastising him and saying this is very serious. Both overeating and undereating are wrong, they're offenses. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very innocent. And he raised his head up and looked at Ramachandra Puri very attentively, and he said, Agya Balaka Mui, Shishya. He said, I'm like Balaka, I'm like a small child. I should accept your instructions, your Agya, Shishya Tomar. You should treat me like your disciple. Muradik Shiksha Deha E Bhagya Amar. Bhagya means good fortune. This is my good fortune that you're instructing me. Can you do like that? When someone does, it's not such an easy thing to do. But if we want to practice vraja-bhajan, we have to have this kind of tolerance. We have to be ready to be instructed, be ready to be chastised by other persons. So the devotees, again, they became very, very upset when they saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was cutting back on his eating. And Mahaprabhu chastised the devotees in Shabikeni Purira Kora Rosha Sahaja Dharma Kahai Teno Tanra Kiva Dosha. What's wrong with Ramachandra Puri? Tanra Kiva Dosha. What's the fault that he has? He's just speaking about sannyas life. He's speaking good thing. You shouldn't criticize him. It's not right. He says, he told them, Jati means a sannyasi, Jati hana jiva lampatya atyanta anyaya. For a sannyasi to become a jiva lampatya means an enjoyer. Jiva means the tongue. For a sannyasi to start trying to enjoy the tongue, that's a great offense. It's a very wrong thing. But the Jati Dharma, the sannyasi Dharma, prana rakite ahar matra kai, that he should just eat just enough to keep his body and soul together. So this is the behavior of a Vaishnava, is a behavior of someone who's really serious about Braj Bhav. Most of the devotees in our movement are not serious like that. Most of the devotees, like we saw yesterday, they're coming for a party. And it's a lot of fun. We dance, we have some prasadam, we speak to old friends, there's an entertaining kirtan, some of the ladies sing, and they're really good musicians, and man, it's a really rocking kirtan, there's some entertaining stories and things. That's Vedic culture. There should be some entertainment, but those persons who are just coming to be entertained, that's not the highest thing. We don't want to discourage them. We don't want to be like Ramachandra Puri and criticize them in that. But that's a lower class behavior. Rather, we want to behave in a way. We have to have a goal. What is our purpose? Why am I doing this bhajan? And we should contemplate on that. I know many devotees who are doing serious bhajan, before they begin their chanting every day, they do some reading. Maybe they recite some shlokas, they do some reading. And the purpose of that reading is to fix their mind. And what is my goal? What is the purpose of my bhajan? And to get my mind out of the toilet of news and Dramya Kata and criticizing this person and that and all the Facebook news and things. Let me get my head into Gaura Leela, into Krishna Leela. What is my goal? What is my purpose? So this is Ramachandra Puri. Ramachandra Puri had a sense of entitlement. And as we often comment, that sense of entitlement is very detrimental for bhakti, even the Christians. If you do a Google search for entitlement in Christianity, you'll find as many articles. I studied entitlement a little bit. And our Christian friends, they understand that entitlement's a very detrimental thing. that someone thinks, oh, I'm a senior devotee. I'm an initiated devotee. You're not. I'm better than, I'm a temple president. I'm a sannyasi. I'm a preacher. I'm a this or that. And then we demand something. We have this sense of entitlement. And we sometimes give the example of Jamuna, Prabhupada's beloved disciple. And her last visit to Mayapur, she went to Jamuna, is very famous as a singer of the Govindamadi Purusha. She was one of the most amazing kirtaniyas in the movement. Srila Prabhupada personally used to request her to sing before programs, even in India and things, much to the kind of dismay of the sannyasi disciples and things. But Prabhupada liked her singing very, very much. So when she came to Mayapur, some of the devotees requested her to do some bhajan programs. And so, I don't know, I think it was twice a week or something. I spoke to some of the devotees who were taking part in that program. I don't think I was in Mayapur at that time. I came there later. I remember seeing Jamuna, but I didn't get a chance at that time to have any exchanges with her. I think that was like 94 or 95. Anyway, so she gave some instructions to the devotees when they began the kirtan program. And she told them that don't invite anyone. This is our small group. Just like we have this group on Zoom. And it's our small group. And it's very, very nice because we have some love and trust amongst the devotees. We can have discussions and things, and we can go deeper into things than we could do if we're just doing some platform preaching or giving a talk in a Pandal program in India before 1,000 villagers. And then all you can talk about is how you should chant japa or follow the regulated principles or be a vegetarian or some simple thing. You can't speak about anything deeper than that. So that intimate kind of sangha is required. It's an important thing. But so Jamuna was telling him like that don't invite anyone to this, and you should come on a regular basis. And one day, just as they were about to do kirtan, there was a knock on the door. And the devotees went and opened the door, and there was a Mataji, initiated devotee, who was a friend of everybody in the room. And she kind of said, can I come in and join the kirtan? And then Jamuna spoke up and she said, oh, I'm sorry. There's not enough room. And the devotees are kind of looking around in the room. It'd be like in this room here. There was space. And they couldn't figure out, why is Jamuna doing like this? And finally somebody said, well, there's some room kind of out on the balcony. And then Jamuna rather reluctantly agreed. And then much of that happiness of that Mataji, she came. Later on, one of our friends spoke to Brajalila Mataji. She spoke to Jamuna. And she said, I don't understand why you did that. She said, out of all the people I've ever met, you are the kindest, you have the biggest heart. And I don't understand why you told her that there was no room when there was room. And Jamuna then told her, she said that, yes, there was room. She said, but when she came, I could see written all over her face the attitude of entitlement. That because I'm a devotee, because I live in Mayapur, because I am initiated, I'm a god sister of many of these devotees in the room, these devotees are my friends, then I have a right to enter into this group. And we should understand when we want to do some serious bhajan, when Krishna himself wants to do serious bhajan, then he comes with Lalita and Vishaka, Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda, and they have a closed door program. It's not open for everyone. This is the Hare Krishna movement, the movement that we want to get the whole world to chant Hare Krishna. But it began behind closed doors in Srivasanga, and it ended behind closed doors in the Gambhira. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us that we have to, if we want to go deep on our vraja-bhajan, we need to associate, we need to have some time with some intimate group. But Ramachandra Puri had this sense of entitlement, and that sense of entitlement spoils everything. Again, in the same 8th chapter of Anchalila, in text 39, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes Animantrana bhiksha kori nahika nirnai. Anyara bhiksha rashtitira loin in this choy. The nahika nirnai, that was, nobody knew where Ramachandra Puri was going to take his meal. He would just show up unannounced one day, sometimes someday, in the house of some Grihastha devotee, knock on the door. They'd open the door and he'd say, "This is your lucky day. Here I am. You get to serve a sannyasi. Aren't you lucky? Huh? That you can, I'm going to give you my blessings and you can feed me." And he would just show up like that because he had this sense of entitlement. And I've seen that with different devotees. I remember in Los Angeles, we had a table, we were selling some prasadam or something at the Sunday feast. And one Mataji, a senior Mataji, she's actually a Prabhupada disciple, she was wearing white, she's a widow. I saw her go up to some devotee and she wanted a donut or some prasadam that they had. And she asked him to give it to her as a donation. And then she kind of grabbed her white cloth and said, see the color of this? That's the attitude of entitlement. It's not just the sannyasis do that or preachers, but so many devotees do that. Young devotees sometimes do that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us how to deal with it. He taught us that we should not have that attitude of entitlement. That if someone criticizes us, we should be humble. We should bow our head and accept that. But at the same time, we shouldn't try to act like a big person and demand respect and things from other people. And by doing that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us what it means to be tolerant. Tolerance is defined by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Kshama Shilo Paradanam Sahasan Parikirtyate. That someone who, Kshama means to tolerate. Shama also means shyness, like a girl covers her head and she becomes very shy. And then the boy goes to talk to her or something. Shama means to tolerate also. Kshamasilo aparadina. When we can tolerate the offenses of other people, that is known as shamakshila. That person is a very tolerant person. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and I'll share this on the screen, in his commentary on the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 23, text 5, he's given a very beautiful comment. And let's share this here. So I can find it. Here it is. This is a BBT translation. The verse translation is that once a certain sannyasi was insulted in many ways by impious men. However, with determination, he remembered that he was suffering the fruit of his own previous karma. I'll narrate to you his history and that which he spoke. In the BBT purport, they quote Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary. Beautiful commentary. Something very, very deep for us to meditate on. He said that often those who give up the materialistic path and devote themselves to renunciation are attacked by impious persons. It happens. You were going to school when you were a devotee, right? You're going to non-devotee school. Sometimes they make fun of the devotees. I don't know if that happened to you so much.
I was non-devotee.
Okay. But I know so many devotee kids who go to school, and sometimes some of them are a little shy. You know, some are also very strong, and they just wear tilak, and they're just, I'm a devotee, and it's cool. And I think that's really the best way to go. But oftentimes, when we begin to take the spiritual life, there's going to be some people who are going to criticize us. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, but this analysis is superficial because the punishment, the suffering that we're getting, is actually the cumulative result of our past karma. And he says that some renunciates, some spiritualists, they show a lack of tolerance when presented with the remnants of their previous sins, and thus they're forced to enter again into the path of impious life. That's a heavy statement. If we really want to take the spiritual life, and it's nice, again, we're doing this program here, and we want to do something cultural that's a lot of fun for all the devotees and things. It should be joyously performed. But at the same time, when we become more serious, there's something much deeper in Krishna consciousness than just trying to enjoy something. And so when devotees who are serious about their spiritual life, when people come and criticize them and cause them some pain and things, if they can't tolerate that, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, then they're forced to enter again the path of impious life. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs that one should become as tolerant as a tree. If a neophyte in the path of devotional service to the Lord's pure devotees is attacked by envious persons, he must accept it as a consequence of his previous fruitive activities. He should be intelligent and avoid future unhappiness by rejecting the ethic of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If one refuses to enter into enmity with envious people, they'll automatically leave him alone. So this is such a very powerful principle of life in general. Even non-devotees could benefit by this. It's great wisdom. But what to speak of someone who wants to develop vraj-bhav? And therefore we're studying this section now of the Gambhira Leela in this particular perspective, that Mahaprabhu is teaching us that if you really want to do vraja-bhajan, then you're going to have to tolerate what's going on. If you can't tolerate, if you become absorbed, like sometimes some devotees, they become absorbed in criticizing other people. And even they think this is bhakti. Bhakti means we've got to smash all the rascals, and there's been so many wrong things done to the children, and this and that. So we have to go and we have to smash them. But Narottam Das Thakur is saying, Karmi Gyani Nicha Bhakti Natoya Harbi Anurakta. Don't be attached to those people. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching us. He didn't just go and protest against the Nawab Hussain Shah. He protested when they stopped the kirtan. But he didn't protest just because, even when he saw Nawab Hussain Shah was breaking temples and even killing devotees. But Mahaprabhu protested when he saw that the kirtan was being stopped. Of course, we should have zero tolerance. If we see some women, some children, some devotee being harassed or something, we should have zero tolerance in our society. But that's not why we're here. That's not our primary concern. I'd like to read you a few things from an article that we put together in, I think it was issue 92 of our Krishna Katamrita Bindu magazine. We called the article Critics Take the Karma. If you like these quotes, you could download this issue from the Bindu, issue 92. There's a whole bunch more good statements there from this. This first one's from a secular source, from the English writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley. And he said, in one book he wrote, the effects that follow the constant and intense concentration upon evil are always disastrous. Those who crusade not for God and themselves, but against the demons and others, never succeed in making the world better. No man can concentrate his attention on evil or even the idea of evil and remain unaffected. To be more against the demon than for godliness is exceedingly dangerous. Every crusader is apt to go mad. He's haunted by the wickedness that he attributes to his enemies. It becomes sort of a part of him. And this is a statement, a point that we find in our article. We quoted, I think, 2 verses from the Mahabharata, and I think this verse from Narada Purana, where it speaks about who's a papa gananam. Gananam means a counter of pop. Pop is sin. Papinam papagananam yakaroti naradimam. That this person, a papi, he's a very sinful person. Someone is papagananam, is counting all the sins, and that person is naradima. Someone like Ramachandra Puri. That person's the lowest of everybody. Astitve tuya papa, asti nityate vigunanripa. Now, if what they accuse you of is true, astitve, then tuya papa ste, you'll get the same reaction that they should have gotten. If someone's criticizing Greta for talking for 4 minutes and 32 seconds to some boy or something, and it's not right, then maybe something's going to come out that they have a fall down with some boy or something. Something will happen to them. They'll get the sinful reaction for that. If it's true that you actually, but if it's mityadve, if the accusation is not true, then dviguna nripa, they get twice the effect, twice the reaction that the other person would have gotten. And in the Mahabharata, I won't go there now, but in the Mahabharata, it says that if someone criticizes you and you tolerate that criticism, then their punya, their piety comes to you, and your pap, your sin, goes to them. So in that sense, really, critics are our best friend. Now, that's just speaking in terms of karma. And this is an instruction that is also described in the Manasamhita as a similar verse. We're not discussing this in terms of that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not interested in tolerating the words of Ramachandra Puri for that reason. But he's teaching us that if we want to do vraja-bhajan, then we have to understand that there is no enemy. There's a beautiful statement from Srila Prabhupada that Prabhupada made in Paris on a morning walk in 1972. I'd like to share this with you. This is something we printed in our Bindu magazine some years ago also. Devotee said, Prabhupada, what is the devotee's greatest enemy? The greatest enemy of a devotee. And Prabhupada said, he himself. You are your greatest enemy. Because he's a rascal, he's his greatest enemy. So get out of this rascaldom and you become your friend. Nobody's an enemy. You are yourself your enemy. Nobody is an enemy. Now, that's an easy thing to say. But to go through life and really feel that, especially when we see injustices and wrong things done, it's not so easy. But we should see that just as in the Bible, we're taught that we hate the sin, but not the sinner. We see some injustice or something going on, we have zero tolerance. I think when there's some molestation or something of children in our movement, simple solution, just call the police. Turn them over to the police. And then let them go to court. If they go to prison and jail, then you can send them some Mahaprasad to jail. You can bring in some books for distribution. You can go and give them some lecture recordings or something of Srila Prabhupada. You can show some mercy at that point. But we don't need to become absorbed in those things. It's not our business. Many times I see recently, we comment on this quite often, devotees, they say, well, Arjun, Krishna told Arjun to fight. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he did. But if you're like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you should do that. If you're like Arjun, you should do that. But Krishna told Arjun, Nimitamatim Bhavasavya Satchin. You should tolerate. He told Arjun that you be my instrument. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur once told the devotees, he said that the best of all persons thinks himself to be less than others. Why should someone be anxious to pry or look for the defects of other people when he doesn't look at his own conduct? He says, when faults in others misguide and delude you, you should have patience, be introspective, and find the faults in yourself. And you should know that no one else can harm you. No one can harm you unless you harm yourself. It's a very, very deep principle. It's a deep principle of life in general. As we said, it's a of principle of finding Manasamhita and Varnashram Dharma. But it's especially applicable for devotees who want to develop vraja-bhajan. In the life of St. Francis of Assisi, we tell the story sometimes that Francis was once walking with one of his brothers, Brother Leo, from Perugia to a famous temple, St. Maria. And they were walking for many miles. It was winter time. It was freezing cold. It was raining and it was snowing, kind of a rainy snow. And at that time, St. Francis, he told his brother Leo, he said, I want you to write down whatever I say. And then he asked a question to his brother. He said, what is perfect happiness? What is perfect joy? That's the question. He said, if the people in our movement, the brothers, they give excellent sermons glorifying God, I don't think that's perfect joy. If our brothers have some mystical power and they give sight to the blind, or they give somebody who's lame and can't walk the ability to walk and run, if they give the ability to some dumb person to speak and the deaf to hear, even if they raise a dead person back to life, I don't consider that to be the greatest happiness. He said, even if, and we can see even for all the devotees in our movement, they become so learned, they memorize the whole Bhagavad Gita. Francis said, even if they memorize the entire Bible and things, I don't consider that perfect happiness. Even if they can foresee what's going to happen in the future, and they understand astrology and the mentality of all the species, and they can reciprocate with everyone, I don't consider that perfect happiness. So Brother Leo was really surprised. He said, well, then what is perfect happiness? And Francis didn't say. Finally, Brother Leo says, so Brother Leo asked him again, so what is that happiness? And they're freezing cold, walking in the dead of night in this rain and snow. And Francis told him, he says, perfect happiness is when we get to our destination, it's freezing cold, we're covered with mud, it's raining on us, we're starving, we're so hungry, we're thirsty, we're desperately knocking on the door, we're freezing to death. And one of our brothers answers the door and says, who are you? And then we tell him, it's me, Francis. I'm the founder of this group. And this is Leo. And we've come to be with you. Please give us shelter. And at that time, the brother looks at us and says, you're not my brothers. You're just pretenders. You're liars. You're despicable. You're thieves pretending to be saints. You deserve to be punished. Get out of here. And he slams the door in our face. He says, after going through all that suffering of freezing cold, and we're hungry and we're tired, and it's our own brother, and the mission slams it. If we can tolerate that and forgive him, that's perfect joy. And then, he went on, we're suffering so bad, we're freezing, we're starving, we're going to die. And so we start desperately knocking on the door. And again, he comes to the door. And we say, please, we're your brothers. Please show mercy to us. Please be kind. We're starving. We're freezing. We're dying. And then he becomes really angry. He picks up a stick. He starts screaming at us. He comes out and he grabs us and starts beating us. And so we're laying in the snow, all bloody. We're freezing, beaten, and criticized. He says, in that state, if we can remember the Lord, and we can think, my Lord, I've tolerated all of this for you, and I forgive this person. And this, I'm forgiving this person as an offering of my love to you. If we can do that, Francis told his brother Leo, he said, if we can do that, that's perfect joy. That's perfect happiness. And that's the mood of the Vaishnavas. A Vaishnava is someone who, amanina manadena, who can tolerate everything, who's Trinada peace and Nichena Todoreva Sahisna is tolerant as a tree. That's the mood of a Vaishnava. When someone has that mood, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us, that person can do vraja-bhajan. It's not a cheap thing just to imitate Mahaprabhu's bhajan in the Gambhira. And the Sanat Kumar Samhita is a beautiful verse. Tadanam vatsanam kami bhogyajena titastriyaha gunati vaishnavanam cha tadrayam tata buddhai. That just as someone who's bhogyat vena, who's a lusty person, he gets pleasure when his mistress, when a prostitute rebukes him and hits him. He likes it when she hits him. So those persons who are buddhai, who are wise persons, they also know that a wise person should take pleasure in the chastisement and the beating offered by Vaishnavas. So this is a teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not just a teaching of Manasamhita and a teaching of religion, but it's a teaching that if we want to be serious about our vraja-bhajan, then we have to have a depth of mood like this. And there's many, many things we could say about this. We could give a whole seminar about this. But the point being that we don't try to attack those persons who criticize us. Rather, we tolerate, as Mahaprabhu taught us with Ramachandra Puri. I'd like to finish with sharing with you a verse from Kavi Karnapur's Gauragandesh Deepika, where he speaks about the position of Ramachandra Puri. Some people say that Ramachandra Puri was Vibhishan. Vibhishanya Pradasit Ramachandra Puri Smita. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't accept that. But rather, Jatila Radhika Swasru Karyato Vishade Vitam Ato Mahaprabhu Bhiksha Sankochari Tato Karot. That Mahaprabhu accepted Ramachandra Puri as the incarnation of Jatila. Jatila is Radharani's mother-in-law. And Jatila is always criticizing Radharani in Braj Leela. And Radharani and Krishna, they get pleasure from that in a very deep kind of way. And actually, Jatila is actually ultimately a devotee of Krishna. But she finds fault with the divine couple as part of her service. So he says that Jatila entered into Ramachandra Puri. Not necessarily that Ramachandra Puri is Jatila, but that Shakti of Jatila entered Ramachandra Puri. And it was because of that, because of him, that Mahaprabhu restricted his eating. So these are some lessons from this Gambhira Leela. And when we speak about Mahaprabhu's Gambhira Bhajan, it's not just that we want to jump to all the verses from Govinda Lilamrita and hear about those things, the very deep esoteric ecstasies of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But also within this Gambhira Leela, we find the pastimes of Ramachandra Puri. And as we'll speak about in our next session, we find the pastimes of Damodar Pandit and how Mahaprabhu accepted instruction from Ramachandra Puri and from Damodar Pandit to teach us what it means to do vraja-bhajan. That if we want to do vraja-bhajan, it's going to require some very, very deep tolerance, some very deep forgiveness of others. And if we can't do that, and you chant Hare Krishna, then, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kadras Goswami says that Mukti Tucha Phalo Hayanama Basa Hoite, that you'll get liberation. You'll go back to the spiritual world. And that's no big thing. That's Tucha Phalo. But you're not going to get Krishna Prema. You're not going to get Nikunja Seva, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, and which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us how to do bhajan of in the Gambhira. So to teach us, to teach the common people what kind of level of renunciation, what kind of level of internal absorption, what kind of tolerance we have to prepare our mind for Braj Ras, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited this pastime of Ramachandra Puri in the Gambhira. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I went longer than I wanted to. That usually happens. It's nice to have everybody here with us today. Let's see. Who's here? Is anybody here from India? I don't see anybody. Okay. So, Viren Prabhu, do you want to share anything with us today? Any reflections you have? You can also show us your smiling face.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, no, thanks for the class, Prabhu. Some good reflection there also for myself, some good points to ponder. I think the one thing that for myself personally is, this mood that you're speaking about, that even if, and I think I can extend it even beyond Vaishnavas, but if someone chastises us, in this, with us trying to be devotees, regardless of who it is. I mean, I think my question's twofold, because the first thing is how do you constantly remind yourself of Jivera Swarupa Hoi Nitya Krishna Das, all right, no matter who this person is. And then I think then my second point is, so what is it in our behaviors, or what is it in our practices, or what is it that we can do over and above what it is that we currently do to develop that genuine mood of accepting the chastisement, and getting to that point, like you pointed out, that when Saint Francis of Assisi said that I'll be happy if I can then forgive the manner in which I'm treated. How does one progress towards that state? Because it's not something that just I don't know how that happens, but it's something. I don't know if you get my question, Prabhu, but I'm just trying to understand, how does one progress to that?
When I was growing up, there was a popular kind of country music rock song. One line was that the greatest of the sadists and the masochists too, screaming, "Please hit me and I'll hit you." So someone is a sadist, they get pleasure from hitting someone else. Someone's a masochist, they get pleasure when someone hits them. So that's sick. We're not interested in that, and we certainly don't want to see that in our society. And we can speak about this. And yes, this is a nice thing. And we can say, Viren, you should be like this. And especially you should tolerate me if I'm angry with you or I do something wrong. It's one thing to say something like that, but to actually be able to do that, who can really do that? Who can really be Tanadapi Sunichina? So that person who's Kirtaniya Siddhahari, who's always doing kirtan, is deeply absorbed in the holy name, they have tolerance. If we're absorbed in Krishna Katha, if we associate with senior devotees and hear their realizations and hear Krishna Katha from them, then we see a path. And intellectually, in the beginning, it's just intellectually, we can say, oh, God, we can tell ourselves that this guy really pisses me off. Why is this guy chastising me like this? This is not fair. I don't deserve this. It really hurts when we don't deserve it. It really hurts when actually we're trying to be good and we're trying to do something nice. We have a noble motivation, but they don't appreciate that, and they want to criticize us. This is why a lot of devotees leave Krishna consciousness, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. He said it there. This is why, main reason why so many devotees leave our movement, because of other devotees. We were commenting on this recently in Ekachakra Dham in, what's that country, Krishna Kund?
Slovakia.
Slovakia. That We've all seen devotees leave Krishna consciousness. I've never seen anyone leave and say, I just really don't like kirtan. I just couldn't tolerate that kirtan. I didn't like the dancing. Dancing was terrible. I didn't like prasadam. I didn't like Krishna book. I didn't like the art. I've never heard anybody complain about those things, and that was the reason why they left. But every person, basically, that I know who leaves, it's directly or indirectly because they had some bad exchange with somebody. Some manager, some senior devotee was really nasty to them, other devotees, and they couldn't tolerate that. I'm not saying that the persons who are criticizing are correct. They're also getting a reaction. But if we can't tolerate that, then we can't stay in Krishna consciousness. So if we want to stay and we want to be able to tolerate, first of all, we have to associate with devotees who tolerate. Once there was a Pandal program, and there was like 10,000 people who came, and Srila Prabhupada gave this talk, and he was like, as we say in America, he was hitting it out of the ballpark, like in baseball, and he hit the ball out of the park. Prabhupada, it was a home run. And so many people were appreciating it. But afterwards, one man came to him, and this man was really nasty. And he was criticizing Srila Prabhupada. Why don't you have anybody going to Pakistan and preaching, and you people are bogus, and this and this. And the devotees were very surprised because during the Pandal, so much Srila Prabhupada was being very tolerant and humble. And, Prabhupada was being very heavy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say during the Pandal program, he was chastising people very strongly. But then in his dealings with this individual, Prabhupada became very humble and didn't argue with him. And the devotees were shocked. Why didn't you just chastise him? Look, you nonsense rascal, shut up. You don't know anything. We're doing so much. We're preaching all over the world. What are you doing? Prabhupada didn't do that. Prabhupada was just humble and just quiet and just tolerated. And after the man left, when Prabhupada turned, the devotees asked him, Prabhupada, why are you behaving like that? And Prabhupada said, I think I must have offended him in my previous life. So Prabhupada was teaching us how to tolerate. We have this verse spoken by Lord Brahma, Tatena kampam susamikshimano bhunjana eva mrikutam vipakam. Our spiritual life begins when we're able to tolerate bad things that happen to us, thinking that actually I deserve more, I deserve worse. But I scratched my foot, really probably my leg should have been cut off by my karma, but that's really what I deserve. But I just got this little thing. I deserve much, much more. Philosophically, initially, when we hear the philosophy, our mind can take shelter of that. And it can help it to control ourselves, to speak back to that person or something. We're just kind of like, I'm not going to say what I feel to this guy. I'm not going to punch him in the nose. I won't punch him in the nose. I won't punch him in the nose. You really feel like punching him in the nose, but you don't do it because the philosophy's there. That's okay. That's the initial thing. But as we practice Krishna consciousness more, and we take deeper and deeper shelter of the holy name, then it becomes very, very easy to tolerate all those nasty things that come. When we associate with advanced devotees and we see what Srila Prabhupada went through, coming across in the Jaladuta, 2 heart attacks in 2 days, coming as an old man with like 40 rupees in his pocket to a country he doesn't know anybody, and there's a thief breaking into his room and stealing everything. And Prabhupada doesn't lose his inspiration. He just tolerates everything. When we think of what he went through, when we think what the Pandavas went through, we think what so many great devotees have tolerated, then that helps us. But ultimately, it's vraja-bhajan. Is that helpful, Prabhuji?
Very much. Thank you, Prabhu. Very much.
I shouldn't have gone on so long. I'm betraying my own thing. We need to go a little quickly. Natalia, are you there? Would you like to share anything? Natalia is in Estonia, I think, right now. I'm just waiting to see if she can come on. Here she is. Hare Krishna. Are you coming to Lithuania for the summer festival?
Yes, I need to change.
Okay, we'll see you here.
I need to change microphone.
Are you in an airport or something right now? No. Hare Krishna. So
Because
you
my
have,
headphones I cannot speak to my headphones.
you want to share
So thank
anything?
you very much. Oh, sorry.
You want to share anything today?
Yes, sorry. Thank you very much. It was very, very relevant because there are constantly such tests, and it is really so if we trying to think of Krishna and chant uh, as at the very moment we notice something bad, we criticize something like this it just stops. This smaranam just stops at this moment, and it is like totally different. It catches mind very naturally also this all these bad things, and it is very easy to forget Krishna, and really thank you.
It's a good principle when you raise children also, because children sometimes can't tolerate. Children become very angry and they want to attack each other and things. And it's just not going to help them. It doesn't solve the problem. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Manish, do you want to share anything? It looks like we lost the
Hare
communication.
Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for class. Can you hear me?
Can you speak a little louder?
Hare, give me one moment. I'm just going to go
It's a
to a
little hard
quiet
to hear you.
area. Can you hear me now, Prabhu?
Yeah, that's better.
Much better. Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for class. It was really, really hit home quite a lot, actually. So thank you for that. I think I have a question more so than a reflection or realization per se. I think from your previous class, I was thinking about kind of law and love and how one should behave when, you know, you're sitting in a kirtan or a class, or you're seeing some sort of nonsense go on the propagation of the holy name, or some sort of everything is Krishna consciousness, quote unquote, that kind of behavior. And so I was thinking, what's better to do. I was speaking to a senior devotee at the temple here, and they said that actually it's better sometimes to just be quiet, step up and walk away and just not be part of it. And at the same time, if I put my my material leadership hat on, it's kind of, if no one takes accountability, then we run the risk of continually letting we become enablers by being silent to it. So for example, there was this one Kirtan program where someone was chanting, they initiated devotees, all the great stuff like that, and they're making up their own mantras and essentially concocting things. And my opinion was, look, we should have just stood up and walked out there and then, or just say to them afterwards, look, not to have a go at them, not to belittle them, but to say, hey, that was really nice. I remember, that was really nice. Was, I hope Krishna will be pleased with that offering, and I hope you were doing it for Krishna or something to that extent. Or is it better to stay quiet? So I couldn't work out which is better, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because today from the class it seems it may be better to just tolerate and say, hey, look, it's my misfortune that I made a
It's a
mistake.
little hard, like the devotees here in the room with me, they can't hear what you're saying. You sounds really low. This is kind of summarize in general your question, I think. You're asking, is it better to put, as you said, my management hat on and go and do something about something, or is it better to tolerate? Well, in Krishna consciousness, it's not like there's always a standard answer for everything. It's not like 1 + 1 = 2, and that's just the way it always is. But there's always different situations, and it's also, it depends upon our field of influence. If you're a temple president, you're in charge of a gurukula, and you see there's some molestation going on or something, you just say, well, anyway, it's not my business, and we should just tolerate Prabhu. You're going to get a sinful reaction for that. It's very, very wrong. On the other hand, if you see something, somebody is just being too loud in the kirtan or something, and nobody's going to listen to you because you're just a rank and file devotee, then in that case, I think it's better to be tolerant. In any case, what we need in this world is more what Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj used to call spiritual warriors. We need spiritual warriors desperately. But a spiritual warrior is someone who goes to fight. But they're not fighting with just harsh words. They're not fighting with management techniques or using money or this or that. But the weapons of a spiritual warrior are bhakti. They're weapons of love and compassion. And we need more people who are ready to rise up and be that kind of warrior and really accept bhakti as a solution for everything. But there's very, very few people who are able to do that. Most people are going to look for some material solution. They'll put on their management hat. They'll put on this or that. And it doesn't mean that management's not good, it's not needed. Time, place, and circumstance, it may be there. But ultimately, the spiritual warrior is someone who takes shelter in bhakti as a solution. And that's what we need. And we need to accompany that with whatever kind of solution we have. Is that okay, Manish?
Jai, that's super helpful. Thank you. I'll try and imbibe that not shallowly. But
Thank you, Krishna. Thank you. Ujjwala Rasigya, you just made some comment. Would you like to share something? I think you probably got to go. I'd forgotten you were there. Please forgive me. There you are. Nice to see you. Ujjwala Rasigya has to work, so I think. Looks like you're in the hospital now?
No, Prabhu. Weekend services are different than the weekday services, Prabhu. So again, my daughters, they have dance programs, so I just drop in, drop off, and those things, Prabhu. I'm very glad to be in the Sangha, especially the last verse that you just mentioned, the weapons of the weekend warriors. I was waiting to hear what you were going to say when you said weapons of weekend warriors. Tikshava, Parunika. So those are what they, Ajata Shatra, Shanta, Sadhava, Sadhu, Vishnu. Yeah. Prabhu was just thinking, I mean, I don't know if there would be anybody who would not want to be a weekend warrior and who would not want to have those weapons, the beautiful weapons. But as you also mentioned, it is not easy to get there, to have those. And as the discussion was nicely happening, I think one of the Prabhus asked how to get there. You have said this again. I've been hearing this, Prabhu, fortunate enough to hear this for a few years now, but they are never all. We want to hear this. Every time this comes up, I'm like, it's not about the message. This is not about the information. It is about how much have I transformed so far. I've heard about this, but how much? So the question is, Prabhu, if we have to say, like the strength to be that spiritual warrior. I'm actually remembering the quote. Somebody asked this question to Sri Srimad Gaur Govinda Maharaj. How can we get the spiritual strength? And the Maharaj was, in that quote, the answer was, when you follow the instruction of the spiritual master. It was straight like that and nothing around. Follow the instruction of the spiritual master. Then you get the strength from Balaram, something like that. Would you please elaborate on that and add, or please give us the information that we got from it?
And it takes some time. It's not like Arjuna just decided one day, I'm going to go and fight in Kurukshetra and I'm going to be a great warrior. But Arjuna trained for years. He studied under Dronacharya. He went through so many austerities and things before he was able to do that. So we want to be spiritual warriors. But as you said, it's not a cheap thing. It's not just an easy thing. We have to be tolerant and be peaceful and ready for that. I think it's important for us to contemplate the difference between behavior in a Manasamhita kind of society as compared to maybe a more advanced Vedic society or Bhagavad society as compared to the society of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers. And we want to be in the society of Mahaprabhu's followers who are following the gopis, who are acting on the level of Krishna prema, which is a topmost, and it's not easy to enter into. Thank you, Ujjwala. I really appreciate it. It's really good to see you.
Prabhu, it's not easy. It's not easy. But as you said, the Sangha like this, just attending the Sangha like this, hearing the same words over and over, I see that is the only way, Prabhu, really only way. Very thankful, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Let's see. Gora Prabhu, do you want to share anything? Are you still awake? Are you there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Gora.
Sorry to fumbling with my microphones and things here in the dark. I'm going for a walk.
I can't see you there in the dark. You don't want to wake up the kids, right?
Yeah, I heard there's a little stirring because I was banging some pots, so I just went for a walk. Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu. It was really appreciated the Katha, and so many points. I really liked the story about Saint Francis of Assisi. That was just so deep, and I was just contemplating about this, these levels of tolerance that the Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord, display, and how they're actually natural byproducts of their deep absorption. And I think this was like the point of today's Katha is the vraja-bhakti. When one is absorbed in vraja-bhakti, then this tolerance is actually there as a natural byproduct, and how it cannot be imitated. But still we have to try to cultivate it. We try our best to cultivate it. And it reminded me of a talk that I was listening to, a cassette many years ago that I found in the ashram, and it was a talk that Gurudev was giving to some Sankirtan devotees, encouraging them and telling them, you know, that they will have to face different challenges. They will, you know, don't be surprised if you get attacked. He was speaking in the context of going out on the streets on book distribution and Harinam and getting attacked by some crazy hooligans. And he gave this story about how he was on a Harinam. This must have been really, really in the early days, when he and Bhakti Chaitanya Swami were in Berry Place in London. And, in the Harinam, he described how there were these hooligans. They were harassing the devotees at the back of the Harinam party. So he went to the back of the Harinam party, and then they grabbed him and they pulled him, and they pulled his seeker and lit it on fire with a lighter. And then after the Harinam, they followed him down into because he had to go to the toilet, so he went down a subway. And these same hooligans followed him down there into the toilet and beat him up, you know, kicking him in the ribs, kicking him in the face. And he described how this was happening, and how he didn't try to defend himself at all. He just accepted it, that this is my karma. I deserve far worse than this. This was actually his consciousness. He wasn't trying to do this. It was just that's how his consciousness was. And he said eventually one old man came into that bathroom and chased those hooligans away, defended him, and he thought this was Krishna coming in the form of this old man to defend me. But he said because he wasn't trying to defend himself and he was just accepting the beating, he said he was just feeling so blissful. He was so ecstatic. So it reminded me of that story that he told. Thank you.
Yeah, we all have to go through. I was attacked once on book distribution. Someone punched me from behind, knocked me down. I never even talked to him before, but not like what your Guru Maharaj went through. But we have to be ready. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hare Krishna.
So, Mukunda Prabhu, would you like to share something?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the talk today, Prabhuji. Learned a lot about tolerance. I just want to comment on one point you made. It was quite a nice point. You spoke about sort of Damodar and Ramananda Roy serving Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. And you said that concept is simple, yet it has deeper ramifications. And I'm kind of curious to want to know, what are some of those deeper ramifications that you mentioned, you mentioned. And I want to take that concept and bring it towards a similar type of concept where a disciple is serving Guru. How do we understand these ramifications so that we have the knowledge and experience to actually serve Guru, and not on a superficial external level, but on a much more deeper level?
As we serve Gurudev continually, gradually we become close and we understand the heart of Gurudev, understand the heart of some person. And it's not a simple thing. Anyone's heart is a book, is an encyclopedia. To try to say something, briefly about what are the ramifications of Sri Damodar Goswami's vraja-bhajan is a very, very deep thing. We can look at it in so many different ways. Ramachandra Puri is speaking of Bhagavatam, philosophy. Sri Damodar Goswami is singing songs. So both kirtan and philosophy are needed to look on that level. But on a very deep level, they're in the mood of the gopis. When Srimati Radharani is feeling separation from Krishna, and she's really feeling like she may die, then to keep her alive, Lalita and Vishaka and the other gopis are doing kirtan, Krishna kirtan around her. And that kirtan is imbued with such deep, powerful feelings. So this is that kirtan. And Krishna has come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's in the mood of Radharani. And as gopis have come as Sri Damodar and Roy Ramananda and other associates doing kirtan for his pleasure. And to help repay his debt to Srimati Radharani, Krishna, he's tasting the feelings of Radha. And he's giving this kirtan to the whole universe. This is therefore we call it the kirtan of our sampradaya. You've heard me probably speak about this quite a few times. That this is a kirtan of our sampradaya. We're doing kirtan Tate Krishna Bhaji Kori Guru Sevan as a service for our Gurudev. Our Gurudev is doing a kirtan for service to his Gurudev, is doing a service for his Gurudev. Ultimately, we're doing service for Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswamis. We're serving then Sri Damodar and Roy Ramananda, in turn are serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with Krishna trying to taste the mood of Radharani. It's a very, very ecstatic, very, very blissful, very deep thing. So within that kirtan, it's kind of a roller coaster, and we'll be going through some of that when we discuss more about Mahaprabhu's bhajan and the Gambhira, and how sometimes there's feelings of union, and other times there's feelings of separation, and how Sri Damodar and Roy Ramananda, they perfectly know how to play that, and why it is that sometimes when, to give one example of the depth of their bhajan, why it is that sometimes when there's union, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sees Krishna in Jagannath Vallabha Gardens, or he sees he's having a dream and he sees Krishna in a Rasa Leela, or he sees he's taking bath in the ocean. He goes to Chatak Parvak and he sees Govardhan Hill, and he becomes mad and he falls unconscious. In each one of these examples, he sees Krishna and the gopis. In the case of Chatak Parvak, he sees Radha and Krishna in a cave. He doesn't see himself as Radharani or Krishna, but he sees the two of them together. And he's doing service. He's picking flowers for the gopis. That's Manjari Seva. So at that point, Sri Damodar Goswami and the others, they do kirtan to bring Mahaprabhu back to external consciousness. This is something we'll speak more about later on. But what kind of kirtan is that? It disturbs Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It takes him away from his entrance into Krishna Leela and brings him back to this material world. And Mahaprabhu opens his eyes and he's confused and says, where did you bring me? Where am I? What did you do? Why did you bring me? What kind of kirtan is that? It's necessary. Because Sri Damodar Goswami is Lalita. And Lalita knows the mood of Radharani. And how sometimes, and if Krishna now as Mahaprabhu wants to taste that mood of Radha, what is the mood of Radha? Sometimes Radharani, she's feeling such intense separation from Krishna. And then suddenly there's a spurti where Krishna manifests himself in some way. And Radharani's in ecstasy of Samriddhi Mansambho, which means fully enriched union. And then at that time, suddenly Krishna disappears again. And then again, Radharani, she was with Krishna, but now again she's just in Dvigunita Vipralamba. She feels twice as much separation at that time. And this is compared to Mahaprabhu during the Anabhashram, when he can't have darshan and Jagannath. He goes to Alarnath, Brahmagiri, which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said is Dvigunita Vipralamba Ketu, the place of twice as much separation. So Mahaprabhu was experiencing union when he sees Jagannath, just as Radharani sometimes sees Krishna in a vision, and then Krishna disappears. Why does Krishna do that? To enhance, make more and more and more intense the feelings of Radharani. So these are some of the subtle nuances in the bhajan of Sri Damodar and Roy Ramananda. There's so many things. For a conditioned soul like ourselves, what little things can we understand? Some little things we can pick up, but it's so deep. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Grateful that we can pick up at least some little things about it. These little things, they help us. They kind of embed themselves in our consciousness, and it helps us go forward and know what the goal is actually. Even in terms of serving Guru, for that matter, what are the deeper ramifications of serving Guru?
We have to constantly be reading, constantly be hearing the philosophy, discussing with devotees, so that we keep in mind our goal. Otherwise, our goal just becomes to finish 16 rounds. Or rather, barely make it through 4 regulated principles. And that's the purpose of my life, because I promise those things. But our goal is something much, much, much more than that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very well.
You just wrote some nice comment. Would you like to? It looks like you're getting ready to go. Maybe you already did. You're still here. Would you like to say something, or I can read out your comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Maybe if you can read it out, if you don't mind.
Sure. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Forgive me, my connection might cut soon, but I wanted to share my prizes from the days absorbing Sangha. I've been contemplating the topic of forgiveness this past week, and your story of the saints and Vera and Prabhu's question made a deep impression. I understand the quality of forgiveness is so important for a devotee to enter into deep bhajan. I hope I can cultivate it. I also particularly appreciated the points made on the sense of entitlement and how we shouldn't have that. We'll be revisiting this again on YouTube. That's really good. Thank you. It's a nice meditation. It's so very, very important. I think back some years ago, a terrible thing happened in America. There was a man who, I think he was delivering milk or something. He went crazy one day, and he went to this Amish community. He was supposed to, I think, deliver milk to the school there, and he brought some guns. And there was just a group of small children, and he locked all the doors and boarded up the windows and things, and he killed, I think, like 11 or 12 of the children, like 11, 12-year-old kids, little girls and things, just brutally murdered them all. And what's amazing is the reaction of that community. They're Christians, they're Amish people that we would consider them maybe not as advanced as Hare Krishna devotees, although I think that's a bit simplistic. Perhaps their philosophy is not so as deep, but their personal realization may be deeper than that of many devotees. And we see this in the reaction. The whole Amish community, after their little babies were killed in the school by this man, and he committed suicide, the whole community got together and they raised money to help the murderer's wife. Because they understood now she's lost her husband, who's going to take care of things. They weren't thinking of their children. They were forgiving that man. And the expression of their forgiveness was in that they went to that woman. So this is the depth of forgiveness of the Vaishnavas. It's not an easy thing to do. If we're not doing deep bhajan, it's not possible. It's just not possible. Thank you very much. Looks like we lost Hemante. Her connection just went down. She said she was going to. Who else is here? Well, here in the room, Greta, would you like to make any comments? What do you think?
No, I wrote so much.
Yeah?
I put a lot of
You want to share anything? You come close over here. They don't have to see you, but at least if you want, you
I
can.
hope my
But at least they should hear you.
realizations is very relevant.
That's okay.
Very simple. Maybe like many points that I know that were mentioned already, but I really liked the fun part that you said, because like personally I feel that I am really stuck in a fun part and and it's not so safe, it's not so deep, and I kind of want to get out of it, but it doesn't feel for me so natural. The mood of service is more natural to have fun.
You're 25 right now, is that right? 24. When you're 24, life is meant to have fun.
Okay.
Or we say, but still, we should understand philosophically. And we should try to be a little bit sober. And don't just hang out with all the people who just want to have a good time. And their life actually can be very shallow, even in Krishna consciousness. There's the pizza devotees, who just go to Mayapur instead of being in the kirtans and going to Krishna Kirtan, trying to associate with senior devotees. They're just interested in the pizza and talking to the boys and girls and like that. That's not going to make you happy. At least you can understand it philosophically. Anything else?
It's okay.
Okay, thank you. Krishna Kun, do you want to share anything else? You do. They're not going to hear you very well. I can tell right now.
I speak up nicely.
Okay.
I think you are able to.
Leela Purushottam, can you hear what Krishna Kun is saying?
I think so.
Yeah, if she speaks that loud, we probably will be able to hear.
Okay, good. Thank you. Ooh, this was a whopper. I really have to thank you for drawing my attention to a perspective that I really hadn't thought about in terms of Ramachandra Puri. I really never considered that this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaching us how to go closer towards Vraj-bhajan and vraja-bhajan. So this kind of tolerance. And it makes complete sense, but it really hit my heart. So I was very grateful. I'm very grateful for this session. Like I thought about, Mahaprabhu demonstrating this tolerance, we should also become tolerant, and of course how he Ramachandra Puri is Kutila, and how that's his rasa with Mahaprabhu and all these things, but not about the aspect of this is for me to go deeper. This is for me to come closer to serving Srimati Radharani's maidservants. This is what Mahaprabhu is coming to teach, right? And this is how he's teaching it, and how he mentioned how his renunciation and his tolerance are the examples of this kind of depths we need to have. We want to go towards this service, and we want to go towards this service because this is the most pleasing to Krishna. So it was very special to me. Thank you very much. I marked a really good sentence that there are no enemies if you want to go towards vraja-bhajan. The enemy is us. That's good.
Enemy is us.
That was, yeah. I also, there was something else I thought that, yeah, I really like this quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on introspection. This was also very nice, and how we should take pleasure in the chastisement of Vaishnavas. I heard this many times. I heard from you your own personal story about how frightened you were when Gurudev once in your life praised you instead of chastising you, and how Advaita Acharya was in ecstasy when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chastising him, and in fact he preached the wrong philosophy just to be chastised. But I think there is some ways to go for me in this, and that has worried me for a while. Like I feel that I cannot really be chastised. I haven't come close enough to, even to you maybe, or to my Gurujanas, to actually be chastised, corrected, and be able to take it nicely. If you have any advice how to come to that point, that would be appreciated.
Well, it's like Viren Prabhu's question. There's a similar question. How can we come to that platform?
Yeah.
And Rupa Goswami advises us on that. And he says that Utsaha Nishchaya Dharyat. We have to be enthusiastic, patient, and confident. We have to associate with the right devotees. We have to be on track, like you were sharing with me today, that talk from the Shiv Prabhu, and how in our non-bhajan, we have to be very focused on what we want to accomplish, what we want to get. And then we'll get results. But otherwise, and I'm not trying to, I feel bad, Greta, that I'm not trying to be a grumpy old man who's complaining about young people having fun at the Hare Krishna festival. We should have more fun. And I'm delighted when I see even drunk people or something come in the Harinam and dance. And
we saw you dancing last night for 2 hours at the gate. We were so delighted. We went out multiple times to check if you are still dancing.
I was really ecstatic. But at the same time, there's a depth to it. And Prabhupada would dance. He would dance in ecstasy. The gopis dancing. And sometimes, especially when there's a big crowd, it can become like a party kind of spirit thing. And we have to be a little careful of that. And that's why it's really good to have some small groups of friends, wherein in that group of friends, we're hearing and chanting together and discussing philosophy. Not such an easy thing, especially for friends your age. A lot of them, they'll like kirtan, or maybe even doing something fan Radha Golokananda, that's really cool. But when it comes to philosophy, that requires a deeper level of faith. It's Prabhupada once said that the class is actually for more advanced devotees. He said that after everybody fell asleep in the class.
But you were there sitting in the first row on class yesterday. In fact, you were the only one answering the question.
Yeah, she's the only one who got the. So the devotees who are here, we asked this question yesterday in our class. We said, what is it that we're praying for when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra? And everybody was just quiet. I think they thought it was a trick question or something. You know?
I think they thought that it was a poetic question.
Yeah, something. And one person said, oh, Krishna. And but But it was great who just came, he just gave a very simple answer. We're praying, Krishna, let me serve you. That's the obvious thing. It was good. Okay, so we should finish. Leela Purushottam Prabhu, do you want to share anything? Looks like you're outside.
Yes. I was the whole time outside. That's why I was off the camera. I was harvesting a green peas actually, the whole lecture. Yeah, there was like right on the beginning. I really like the conception of differentiation of the community, like based on Manu Samhita, on Srimad Bhagavatam, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita. I would really love to hear you elaborate much more deeply to those categories. Well, like how would you describe those communities? Like basically, it really reminded me of your favorite quote of Srila Prabhupada from Mauritius. Civilization must be based on love, not law. That would be probably like a
but even
pattern
that quote, if you think about it, what is that love? And this is the problem in the Ramananda Samvad. When Ramananda Roy begins to speak about love and surrender, Mahaprabhu rejects that. He rejects Sarvadharma and Prityaga. There's nothing wrong with saying Sarvadharma and Prityaga. That's good. Why is it rejected? Because there's no focus. It's just too general. And so, Prabhupada, who is he speaking to? He's speaking to the president of the country. He's not going to speak so much details. He did speak about how this love is there within Krishna consciousness, but he just kind of mentioned that. And he just, in a general way, Vedic culture means love. And we can see that in Vedic culture, like Chanakya Pandit, thinks that's based on love. The Bhagavatam is based on a deeper sense of love. We keep Krishna in the center. But Mahaprabhu's community, what is that?
Yeah.
That's where they're keeping Manjari, Radha Seva, Radha Dasya in the center of things. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, that would depend on how we would decide to interpret that word love. We could easily end up in describing like prema bhakti given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it would include the whole. But probably, yeah, Prabhupada, most probably in that context in Mauritius, there he meant something more general, as you mentioned.
I saw a comment recently from Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj that really made me think. Just today I saw it. He was saying that for most devotees, whatever conception we have as our goal in the beginning, usually that stays with us. And we're shaped by that. So therefore, we want to have higher association.
Yeah.
So higher association, speak out. Otherwise, you just comment. It's just the purpose is to finish my 16 rounds every day, to follow the principles, to give donations to the temple, whatever. Some general
and
thing.
that might be very often the thing that out of immaturity we consider prayojan tattva gyan as something taboo or not to be dealt with. But in a sense, in this context, what you just mentioned, the quote of Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, it makes perfect sense how necessary it is actually, because we have to have a set goal that we focus our everything, our hopes, our endeavors, our focus, and the goal must be clear. So yeah, I really appreciated that quote. Thank you.
Otherwise, we become like Dhenukasura, and when we see the cowherd boys climbing tall trees and getting the fruit that we can't get, we just become angry and make a loud noise. Nobody's supposed to climb the tree. Nobody's supposed to. You're all supposed to be down here following this Varnashram dharma system.
No, nobody's allowed to taste rasa. Yeah, and actually, most striking point from me from the whole lecture actually was the sense of entitlement. It felt almost like a surgery operation on my heart. Because it
yesterday,
was.
I went through yesterday that they're like, you know, there was, what's his name? Shanta Maharaj
Maharaj.
Fortunately, fortunately, it's good. He was the big Swami. But they were putting me in a chair next to him and this and that. And that's not why we're here. Not our purpose. We accept it with love. The devotees do that. It's a nice culture, but you know what I'm saying. It's not,
you wanted to finish that point? You wanted to say something more about entitlement?
It was so striking to hear it in the direct connection with our hopes of developing qualifications for Vraja Bhakti. And the story with Yamuna Mataji, it was so clearly describing the whole thing. I that was maybe the strongest thing, because I could really identify with that Mataji coming in, feeling like I'm part of the Sangha, that's where I belong, and having to face that treatment, let's say, by Yamuna Mataji. Krishna.
not fair. It's not fair. I deserve that.
Yeah, and how far, how deep can it go, like in our hearts, this inner experience? I mean, you know, like just somehow as you were describing, I felt like I'm experiencing some of the emotions of the person suffering the sense of entitlement. and just, you know, like you enter that room as you described, where there are so many of your god brothers, and you almost feel like that's your Sangha. But then there is the advanced Vaishnava who can see into your heart, who can feel with what mood you're approaching. Like similar, we could take the help of Chaitanya Charitamrita with that milk drinking brahmachari at Srivas Angan would be like a similar scenario actually. You know, I have some qualification to be here, and whatever false idea, our false idea of what that qualification is, practically creates that sense of entitlement based of something false actually. So that's actually quite scary to me, that we don't even have to knowingly cultivate that sense of entitlement, but we just think, okay, I'm brahmachari, I belong here. Okay, I'm this, I'm temple president, I belong here. Okay, and then you can say whatever, and you don't have to even think about it as a in that sense of entitlement.
And one lesson.
So that was really striking for me.
One lesson that I see from Jamuna's this pastime with Jamuna is that we need to make sanghas that are intimate, and it's not necessarily going to be defined by who's my god brother, who's in the same temple, who's my neighbor, whatever like that, which is what we usually do. We need to go deeper and really find persons that we love and be close with. It's really important. Okay. Krishna,
Thank
do you have any? All right. Thank you very much, Leela Prabhu. We're looking forward to seeing you again. You got to come up here. You know, Mangal Prabhu had a suggestion we do some program here.
Oh, really?
It's like 14.
Well, it's something around 1,000 kilometers. It's not undrivable actually. Although it's 1,000 kilometers through Poland, so that's another story. But I'm looking forward. Probably tomorrow I will be able to speak with Mangal Prabhu. I'm looking forward to hear all his experiences and how was it for him?
It's an amazing
whole
community.
dream.
You know, I'll tell you one of the most amazing things about the community. I'm sharing this now with ladies here in the room too. This temple, very expensive. Actually, this whole project, it's cost them millions and millions of dollars to buy the property, to develop it, all these buildings and things, and almost all of the expense has been on one devotee, Mukunda Preshra Prabhu. And he single-handedly, he has a business, and he's buying all the property and making buildings and things. Where we're sitting here, they made this house. He made this house for Krishna Kund and I, and so kind. And he built a temple by himself. So this program yesterday, this is the final culmination of so much. It's the opening of the temple. And where's Mukunda Preshra? He wasn't there the whole day. What did he do? He just couldn't tolerate crowds. So he was just sitting in his room chanting japa all day. He does that. He chants regularly, like 10, 12 hours a day and whatever. He's just chanting japa all day by himself. And I saw him today sitting in the temple after all the crowds have left and things. That said a lot to me about the kind of community that's here. And he's like the main, I guess you call him the main manager. There's not really such a manager. Maybe they're going to make Greta the temple president or something. Hitler or something, everybody, I don't know. But okay, we should go then. Thank you very much for listening. Hare Krishna. Ancha Kopa Darubhishchan Kripa Sindhu Patitan.